All right. So, hello everyone. In this particular video, I wanted to talk about preparing for comprehensive exams. So, currently, I'm in the part of my doctoral journey where, for my program, we have to take comprehensive exams before we can move forward with defending like our dissertation prospectus. And so, I'll be taking my exams in the fall. However, you have to meet with your committee 4 months prior to taking your exam. And so every program is going to be different. So you want to make sure that you're looking at what your program's requirements are. But for mine, I'm just going to talk about the way in which how my program works and the way that I'm preparing for it. And so the first thing I want to talk about is choosing your comprehensive exam committee. I utilized the same committee that I used for my thesis. One of the major reasons being that we worked really well together as a committee. That is super important for yourself and your progression, as well as for just the well-being of your committee members. You want a team; you're working as a team, and so we all worked really well together for my thesis part of my program. And so I just went ahead and met with them again and formally asked them to be members of my comprehensive exam committee, and they all agreed. And so that's a key point that you want to think about. You want to ensure that you're going to work well with your committee members, that your committee members are going to work well with each other. And I'm in a good place where I check both of those boxes. The other thing is for my comprehensive exams, you want to ensure, at least for me, ensuring that the areas that you're comprehensive or you're comping in are areas that the members of your committee are very well gathered in at least one of those areas. So, for example, not all the members cover both areas that I'm comping in, but each member is considered a scholar and an expert in at least one of those areas. And so that's something that I think is super important. And also because as you're preparing your comprehensive list, which is what we have to do, we have to prepare a comprehensive exam list with a list of readings. Mine is currently about 20 pages long, and they give you feedback. And so, with them being experts in those areas, they're able to tell me which literature I need to gear towards, which areas I can sort of cut back on, and what I specifically need to know regarding the list, that how my list needs to look. So I went through the process of gathering notes from past students that comped in the areas that I looked at. I also did my own search. And so you want to make sure that you have, for me, I wanted to focus on classical and contemporary pieces. So for the classical, for the most part, I just pulled from old lists. My department had a folder that consisted of older lists. Also went to other students and cross-checked, and then also looked at a set list that was provided for the topical areas that I have. I also did an internet search on my own. So I went to Google Scholar for the more contemporary readings. I would put in a specific area. So, for example, one of the areas that I'm comping in is health. And I know John Henryism is a really big perspective in that area. And so I typed in John Henryism in Google Scholar, and I set the dates from 2021 to 2025 because I wanted the most recent works that was being done on that specific topic, John Henryism. And I went and I did that for pretty much all the subcategories within the two different areas that I'm comping in. I think it's important to include both classical and contemporary pieces because you want to ensure that you're covering the classical pieces and then also the more recent arguments or more recent things that may have come about. Another thing that I did is knowing the scholars in the two areas that I'm comping in. So those major names that come to mind, or even if you have to do a Google search you may not know, you want to ensure you're including their works because more than likely, if they are really prominent scholars in the field that you're comping in, you're going to want to include some of the information as far as the articles and research, or maybe it's annual reviews that they've done, and include that in your research. In your comprehensive exam list. Another key pointer that came about from my comprehensive exam meeting with one of my committee members. One of my committee members highly recommended that I read annual reviews in the areas that I'm comping in. because it allows you to get an idea of the way you would structure your argument or your writing when you're preparing for comp. So when you do those practice exams, you would have read an annual review to see the way in which you would want to structure it. My pointers right now are kind of all over the place because I'm going off the top of my head. I didn't write notes, and so these are going to be pointers from everywhere. Another pointer would be going into your comprehensive exam meeting with questions for your committee that you want to know in order to be well prepared. So for me, one of my major questions was wanting to understand what the committee was looking for as far as like when I write my responses. Are you looking for personal opinion? Are you looking for strictly methodology, strictly what scholars are writing? All those questions. Is my focus mainly on the way that I should structure this, right? So you want to know they're grading your comps, and so don't be afraid to ask. Hey, of course they're not going to tell you verbatim. This is what the question is going to be. This is how, but you want to get a sense of the overall idea of how you want to structure. And so that was extremely helpful for me in understanding how I'm going to structure my exam. So have those questions, and the most I could tell you is we can't answer that, right? But they're able to answer those questions because, again, they're going to develop the question later on. So it's not like they're going to give you the question per se, right? Pay close attention to when they're having a discussion and talking about certain things in your meeting, and take notes. I wrote down everything because I want to make sure that I can refer back, because again, this exam isn't for another 4 months. And as you start studying, I imagine that my mind is going to be overloaded. I'm going to forget what they said. So write down notes, like turn into a secretary and write verbatim if you can everything that's discussed, so you're aware of the expectations and the ways in which you need to prepare for this exam. So I talked about preparing for the meeting, preparing your comps committee and who you're going to ask. Make sure that I had an advantage because I've taken classes with those members of my committee. Like again, I mentioned utilizing them for my thesis, so I'm very well aware of who I wanted to be on my comprehensive exam and maintaining that relationship with them. So maybe you have not taken classes. I would advise, setting up a meeting, getting to know these individuals before you officially ask them to be on your committee. So now I'm in the process of beginning to study. So I'm waiting on the final approval for my comprehensive exam. So now I'm in the process of beginning to study. And one of the things that I wanted to do beforehand, before I started reading all the literature, 20 pages of just citations and literature that I need to read. And this includes books, research articles, right? That is a lot to study, which is why it's highly recommended that you use months in advance to study. So what I did is I created a Word document so that as I'm reading the literature, I have a way to log my notes. So for each piece that I read, and it's going to be either article reference or a book, I have it where when I'm done reading, I'm going to write out the title. I'm going to put the topic area. So it's either going to be race and health for me. I'm going to do just a synopsis of the article. Whatever comes to mind of what I gathered from this article or this book that I read, I'm going to write it out. I did two different layouts for books and for the articles, right? So this one is more so for research articles. Then I wrote, I'm going to write what the research method is. Then I'm going to talk about the theories used. I'm going to type out the theories used. Then I'm going to type the research question. Then I'm going to talk about what was the main arguments of the authors, right? What were they arguing? Were they counter arguing anything that I've read prior to? And so I'm going to include that. I'm going to use limitations and then also any new words or definitions that I learned from this particular piece, right? So this is how I'm going to contextualize what I've read. And we know that research articles can be like 20, 30 pages long. And so for me to be able to grasp and make sure that I understand, I created this outline so that when I'm done reading, I can immediately go in and type up for that particular article. And then for the books, it's the same sort of layout, but I just have where I'm going to write a synopsis by each chapter. And so the same thing, research methods, theories used, the research question, the argument of the authors, limitations, possible counter arguments, and then new words or definitions. If you want this layout, you can email me, or I don't know how it works on YouTube, if you can like message someone on YouTube, but I don't gatekeep. I'll be more than happy. It's super simple to send this Word document, or maybe it's something I can link in YouTube. I'm new to this whole YouTube thing, so I'll figure it out. But you can email me my email address. And so then another piece of advice that I gathered and got from my committee is that about 3 weeks prior to the exam date, which I'm going to do a full month prior to the exam date, that I'm not going to read, I'm just going to do practice exams, right? So for our particular comprehensive exams, the setup is that you're going to be taking this exam over the course of 2 days for 5 hours each day. And so I have literally on my Google Calendar, I went in the month before my exam. I have 4 weeks set up where 2 days for 5 hours, I'm going to design practice questions and then utilize old questions that we have access to. And I'm just going to block off that time to do it as if I'm actually taking the exam. And I think this was great advice given to me from my committee, that I'm going to exercise in just preparing, right? Preparing for this exam. And so I'll let you know how that goes. Again, this is just in theory. I haven't gotten that far yet. And so making sure that I think that was really good advice that was given to me by my committee, and I'm going to utilize that. And so we'll see how it goes. This is where I'm at in the preparation for my comprehensive exams. I want to make sure that I'm helping other individuals as I go along, which is why I chose to do these videos to begin with. I think being very transparent about this doctoral process is key, and something that I think is helpful for myself and for others who may be thinking about doing a doctoral program, or who may be in the midst of it. And so this is how I'm preparing for my comprehensive exams. And so I hope this helps, and I will keep you updated as the months go by with progress as to how my studying is going. Maybe I've shifted some things. Maybe I've gained new knowledge in the way that I should approach studying. And also, of course, I will let you all know if I pass or fail later on. So stay tuned. Thank you for listening. Bye.